Hi, boys and girls. So we're starting our next reading lesson. And this lesson is called There's No Such Thing as True Good or Evil. Today we're going to be learning how that sometimes when we read our books, we'll notice that they become more and more complex. And that means there's more layers to our characters. They become more complicated as we're moving up reading levels. And characters aren't always just one way. Sometimes characters can be, a little bit of good and a little bit of evil. They're not always just evil or always just good. They're nuanced, they're complex. So that means that powerful readers like us, we delve deeply into these characters' strengths, their flaws, their motivations across the whole arc of the story. So we really need to look at our characters closely. At the beginning of the year, we started talking about characters by listing their character traits. You guys might remember that from our fiction unit. But we've moved kind of beyond that as we're almost, getting into fifth grade. We need to notice when characters change, when they're being unpredictable, or when they even have opposite traits. One great example from The Lightning Thief is Hades. He's an especially good example because if you study Greek mythology, you already know who he is. And you're usually maybe a little afraid of him. He's a scary god, right? And yeah, when Percy meets him, Hades is terrifying. He's enormous, he speaks in a booming voice, he makes all these accusations. But then Percy gets talking to him, and we realize that Hades has some worries of his own. He has some things, that are overwhelming, that are stressful to him. And it turns out that running the underworld is not an easy thing to do. It's hard. So he wants to avoid a war. He doesn't want a war to start. He has his own reasons why. He doesn't want his kingdom to grow even larger than it already is, because then it's too big and it's hard to manage. So even though it's true that Hades is a big, powerful, harsh god, and he's known to be, this evil character, but he's not always necessarily evil. And in this case, he's not even really the bad guy of this story, since he knew absolutely nothing about the Master Bowl even being stolen in the first place. So he's not our main villain in this book either way, but just showing that, again, characters can be complex. They're not always one way. We can do the same work to notice the flaws in characters that we think are, the hero or the good character of the story. So if we think about Percy, for example, he's not always that honest with his friends about the real reason why he even wants to go on the quest, right? So what if you were Grover and Annabeth, his best friends, and you're thinking all along that you're going along with this challenge, that they're going to go up to Hades and confront him about stealing the Master Bolt. But then they learned that Percy was actually just going because he wanted to save his mom, which is a nice sentiment, but was he being 100% honest with his friends? No. So here we have a character that we love. He is still like our hero. He is still the main character. He's a good person, but it just shows that he's complex. That, sometimes he can be dishonest. He's not always one way. And if we actually think about it, he wasn't honest either with Chiron. If you guys remember back when he went to the prophecy in the beginning. And remember when Chiron asked him if that was all that the prophecy said? And he was like, oh, yep, that was it. That was all it said, right? But he actually lied. There was more to what the prophecy had said. So maybe dishonesty is a major flaw for Percy. So it's something that maybe he as a person needs to work on. He's not perfect. No characters are. So I just want you to remember that as you're, moving into these more complicated stories, that some of the villains, they may be compelling characters. Some of the heroes may have troublesome aspects. It's something that we can think about in our writing as well. how to make our villains more fascinating and our heroes maybe a little more flawed, that they're not always perfect. It makes our characters feel more real as a reader. It makes them feel like real people and not just made up, characters. So that's something that us as great authors try to do when we're doing our own writing, and something we want to pick up on as great readers. So now it's your turn to practice. What we just did was we looked at a part of The Lightning Thief, and we were able to analyze a character and say, oh yeah, this character wasn't always one way. It's not always evil. It's not always good. So when you're reading your own fantasy books today, I want you to stop and jot so while you're reading or after you're reading. It should be quick. As you guys know, stop and jots are quick and easy. Just a thought about, are there complicated heroes or villains in your story? And talk about how they're complex and how they're not always one way. Maybe your character had a moment where you felt bad for them, even though they're the villain of the story. Maybe they showed, why they are that way. And maybe you felt empathy for the villain in the story. Anytime there's moments like that, or if you ever felt angry at your hero of the story, like, what? Why did the hero do that? He's supposed to be always good. They're not perfect, right? No characters usually are. So if you pick up on moments like that, I just want you to do a quick little stop and jot, either in your reading notebook or in the attached file that I posted on this lesson. Okay? So I hope you guys are enjoying your fantasy novels you've been reading, hopefully on Epic, or if you have some books at home. Keep on reading 30 minutes a day, and continue filling out your reading logs. And good luck with this lesson. I hope that you guys really get deep into those books, really look at those characters and see how they're really complex.